Welcome to Duality Check, the podcast where two brothers embark on a journey through the realms of scientific inquiry, the mysteries of the past, and the uncharted frontiers of spirituality. Join us as we explore the wonders of our world and beyond, all while embracing the roles of curious bystanders rather than experts. Together we'll unravel the tapestry of existence, blending the dichotomies of knowledge and wonder. Get ready to question, ponder, and delve into the dualities that shape our understanding of reality on Duality Check. I'm Drew.
And I'm Dean, and welcome to episode number 102.
Officially, unofficially.
Yeah. At some point, we'll drop that part of it, but...
Yeah. It's still fresh enough and funny enough.
Yeah.
To us. Yeah, episode 102. It's been a little while since we recorded.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff has happened.
Yeah. And I just real quick want to apologize for that last episode, the weird technical issues.
Yeah, we're not sure how the mic dropped out or...
Yeah, and I don't recall now, or maybe you do, if we lost that star UFO.
Yeah, I don't know that we...
I don't know if that was in the part that we lost.
We covered the majority of those things in the end too.
Yeah.
So it's possible it got lost, and if not, we'll go over it again.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna go through some of those, I'm sure. Still,
there's at least one that I want to go through.
Yeah.
So since the last episode, which was recorded, over a month ago at this point.
Yeah.
There's been release 2 and release 3 of the UFO files on the DoD website,
and I haven't gone through them myself personally, so I'm happy to. I'm excited to go through some of them, some of the good ones.
Yeah, I just have one of them in mind, which is the one I feel is probably the most exciting one out of the entire release. Just because it seems to show an instance. Or an example of that instantaneous acceleration.
Does it have more context around it too, or is it still
a little bit? Yeah, so
that's good.
Yeah, so it makes it seem like it's not just like a camera cutting away, which on other ones it could just be that rather than the thing accelerating.
Or like we were talking about how like a camera is so far away and the object not knowing how far or close the object is to the camera. Mm-hmm. We are also fresh off of seeing Disclosure Day in theaters.
Yeah.
We just went last night together as a family and saw it. We saw it in IMAX, not 3D, because I don't think they even released it in 3D, but not that it would have been necessary either.
I mean, I don't know how they qualified that theater for IMAX, to be real with you.
I think they potentially just upgraded the sound.
Maybe. I mean, it has to be at least be a certain projector quality, I would think.
Yeah.
But we have the oldest IMAX here in our town in Sacramento is one that's like 5 stories tall. Right. The screen,
huge.
It's gigantic,
huge.
And so this is an older theater, but they claimed IMAX. So I was like, all right, let's do that. But yeah,
the screen was not nearly as big as what you'd experience at the real IMAX theater that we've experienced.
So
I think we saw the first Avatar movie in IMAX in Sacramento. Do you remember that?
At the real IMAX. Yeah.
I think it was epic.
That was awesome.
That was epic. Yeah. So yeah, we're fresh off of watching Disclosure Day, which it wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to talk about it.
We should let's just do that now.
Yeah.
I thought about it a little bit after watching it today when I was just hanging out with the family, but what I was more expecting, I think we touched on it a little bit right after the movie, but we didn't talk too much, was that I expected more towards the beginning of the movie to be disclosure, and then for them to go into a little bit of maybe not what's going to happen, but the reaction or the immediate... what does it mean for mankind type of questions to be answered a bit.
Real quick, if you haven't seen the movie and you're worried about it being spoiled, just pause the podcast, go see the movie, and finish this afterwards.
Yeah.
Because we're going to spoil it.
At least some key points probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to talk about the details of the movie. So, in a similar way to you, I didn't necessarily think the disclosure was going to be at the beginning of the movie, like
earlier
from the previews. So I thought they were doing this thing where, like, with the previews, like a savvy person who makes trailers will sometimes only give you snippets from a certain part of the movie, so that you don't really have any idea what's happening beyond a certain point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking, and I don't even know if this is the case, but I'm sure it had to have been like with the original Matrix, right? Like, they're probably not necessarily showing stuff from the quote unquote real world.
Right.
To spoil that entire giant, like
shock to people.
Yeah.
That big
the huge
surprise.
twist, right?
Yeah.
So I figured this movie was doing something similar where, like, the previews were all showing, like, the lead up to the disclosure. And then I thought
there was going to be more.
I thought that was going to be a significant chunk of the movie is disclosure happening. And I thought the point was going to be Steven Spielberg's take on what disclosure would do to our society. And instead, we just kind of got a movie where the entire climax, like, it literally ends with disclosure. And you see, like, some people's, like, facial reactions, but you don't see, like, political fallout. You don't see really, like, what happens after that, which is kind of what I was hoping for.
Yeah. To be... like, the entire movie was the lead up to that climax, which ended very abruptly.
Yeah.
And which we had been told or assumed that there was some sort of after credit scene as well.
Our mom looked it up on the way there, and she whatever she read said to stay through the credits, and we didn't see anything.
Unless there was, like, some code in the credits themselves.
Yeah,
you had to decipher or something, because I didn't actually pay attention to the credits themselves.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it was like
some cipher.
Like, no, I was gonna say it was like PowerPoint style.
It was
credits where they, like, flipped through, like slides rather than, like, the scrolling credits. And it was that way. It was that way through the entire credits. Whereas a lot of movies, they'll start with, like, the fancy credits at the beginning, and then they'll go to the scroll. And that one never went to the scroll. Anyway, on to the more important, like, or interesting stuff about the movie. I feel like, in general, what he did was sort of try to encapsulate a lot of the phenomena that are surrounding the UFO
disclosure
topic.
Movement too.
But also simplifying a lot of it, which I get, like, for Hollywood purposes to
be able to sell it to a crowd of people who may not be intaking a lot of this information like we are.
Yeah. So, for instance, there was abductions, but they only showed you 2 of these people, when in real life there's thousands of these people, and they all have totally different experiences and stories to tell about their experience, whereas these 2 people were sort of, I guess, on the same page a little bit,
right? And they were also integral to the disclosure event itself.
Right.
So, like, you're following their story and how it led to disclosure, and not just all of these other stories that are kind of surrounding the topic.
And so we have a simplification of the abduction phenomena. So instead of multiple people with sometimes antagonistic or stories that don't line up with each other, or that are more complicated than just anyway. And they stripped out some of the complexities out of the abduction phenomena, where one of the big recurring themes in real life in the phenomena is this whole, like, breeding program thing that you get
it's
going
been talked
on
about for a long time, that they're like artificially inseminating / stealing fetuses out of women, impregnating and taking fetuses out of women and then bringing them back.
Right. And taking, reproductive material out of men as well.
Right.
And anyway, so that gets simplified, but it's there. They have remote viewing in there, but that gets simplified because they
use a physical.
Right. It's tied to this alien object rather than just being essentially a tool that is, or a technique that is innate to human consciousness.
Right. Yeah. They simplify it in such a way that like this is a physical object. It's some sort of like alien metamaterial that is used for.
It's like a magic MacGuffin Hollywood thing that's not explained how it works.
Yeah, and it's not something that can be tied directly to any kind of, specific case in the real world.
Right. They've got a little bit of crop circles, but like one just appears around a guy, and there's not really an explanation as to what that is.
Well,
what do you think?
I think it was part of the connection that he was having with the girl, because he was standing in the field on the phone with the main guy that was like putting together this disclosure movement for them.
Right.
And he told him at the time that she is looking for him and she will find you where you are. So it was almost like, and she was also like connected to him.
Yeah.
So it almost seemed like it was some sort of artifact of that.
Yeah.
Like him being in the field was just like, if it was somewhere else, like if he was not in the field, maybe it was in dirt, maybe the same thing would have happened, but maybe less noticeable,
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I thought, is like it was some sort of artifact of their connection through this, abduction that they shared at a young age.
Yeah.
Another spoiler. But yeah.
Okay.
And they also kind of simplified the idea that these aliens are shape-shifting in a way, and how they present themselves in a way that's comforting to humans.
Right.
So, and in my opinion, I liked how they did that, because it kind of explains. So in the
movie, you have these people interacting with animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the animals, you come to find out in the end, are... So during the movie, they're like these two main characters are having these weird connections with animals, and it's not explained. And you have no context to what it means at first. But you come to find out at the end that the animals... And they're kind of like staring, like these animals are acting weird. They're, coming to them in weird locations, coming in the room, standing right outside windows, staring inside. And when they see them, they can't break eye contact with them, and they're just like fully connected with them.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a weird thing with that too, though. So this is a common thing in real life as well, where people seem to have these encounters with animals, or like in Chris Bledsoe's experience, like he sees this owl all the time before weird things happen. And anyway, in the movie, they use this, what is it, a cardinal?
The cardinal.
Like that red bird. And then there's the scene where, what's the main actress's name?
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt. Her and her boyfriend are in their apartment, and this cardinal flies in, and she has this connection with it, and her boyfriend just sees a bird.
Right.
And then he like shoos it away, and it like flies away like a bird too. But so
I see what you're saying.
I find it weird that it's able to be shooed out the window by the boyfriend as if it is a bird, even though it's sort of being explained as though it's one of these entities.
Yeah. Well, and then later, too, in the movie, you see the animals moving at the end when they're in the fake house and they're having that whole experience. You see all the animals come together in the room.
Right.
And then they walk her out to the craft.
Right.
And then as they're walking to the craft, you see the footprints of aliens instead of
like they actually change.
Like they are physically aliens.
Oh, like they're actually shape-shifting? Like it's not like a mental thing.
Yeah, it's not just a mental thing, but it's like a physical, like they are, or maybe there's a both, right? Maybe they're able to.
No, you're right, because it shows the footprints, and then at a certain point, the footprints change.
Yep. Into the alien footprints.
Right. So Spielberg is suggesting they're actually shape-shifting, in which case then that cardinal thing makes more sense.
Right. Or it could be both too, right? Because there's also this mental connection, telepathy type of connection that they're having with people. Mm-hmm. So maybe they are able to use animals at a distance to like go and as reconnaissance to keep tabs on people.
Like they're doing some sort of psychic connection with the bird.
Yeah, and it is a bird in that moment.
As a tool to like do a jump connection to her.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was doing with the thing, right? They might be doing that same thing from wherever they are.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility too. I mean, it could be both or one or the other, but either way, I think that was an interesting way of showing that the connection, or that the way that we perceive them could be different based on who you are, right? Because the red cardinal had significance to her and him because it was the mobile, the red cardinal mobile that was in her bedroom as a young child when she had that abduction experience. So they used that to calm her and these other animals to calm her and him, because that was what calmed them, right? But it's somebody else, it could be something else that could calm them, right?
Sure.
So maybe you're experiencing what it is that calms you to make the experience that much more, as little, terrifying as it could be, I guess.
Yeah.
And that could explain too, like in real life, how there's all sorts of different stories on how these abductions happen and what they experience, what it is they see. Some people, maybe nothing is going to be more comforting than just knowing the truth, so they just see aliens.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess. So Steven Spielberg did Close Encounters, right? Mm-hmm. And didn't he did also E.T.
He did E.T. Yeah.
And so, like, if you look back at those movies, E.T. is like a kid finding this alien, but it's kind of a chase movie in a way. Mm-hmm. Like it's the like government's half after the him alien. Bonding with this alien, but like half him trying to stay away and keep it safe, right? Mm-hmm. And then Close Encounters is a lot more cerebral. It's not like a chase heavy action movie. And I was expecting more like Close Encounters on that spectrum, and I think we got more of the like chasey, actiony stuff.
It was a little bit of both.
Well, I heard
more so the physical, I
heard one person who reviewed the movie who's not, some UFO nut like us, and for him, he's like, this movie was just a chase movie. And I was like, you know what? I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
And technically that's really true. Mm-hmm. So I wish it just could have slowed down and it didn't necessarily need all this action, and it could have just spent more time on the ideas and the characters.
Yeah. And there was enough in there that kind of like took me out of it too. Like the idea that, well, first of all, parts of the chase scenes where the guy's like behind this wire fence, and there's a bunch of agents in front of him, and they don't just turn around and see him running and stealing a car right behind him. Like, come on, guys. Like, you're terrible at your job if you don't have somebody staring behind you looking around, right?
Like the crazy getaway with the train and stuff.
Yeah. And then there was the fact that they're using a news anchor and a news studio to have full disclosure. Mm-hmm. It just is, in my view of and how I see things working, it's such a it just wouldn't happen in my view. I just don't think it would get past the first station putting it on. The next station wouldn't take it serious. The next, it would take so much longer for it to go through those channels.
Yeah, it just seemed like the whole climax at the end where they finally disclose with this news broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, like, that whole thing just seemed a little too idealized to me. Like, what are the chances that any news story, no matter how big it is going to ever have everyone everywhere staring at their phones, watching the same thing at the same time, not paying attention to their luggage on the carousel, on the trolley at the airport? We're like, who stops and like watching news on their phone, waiting for their luggage at the airport?
I mean, it would have to be something. Obviously, like, if that were to happen, I think people would pay attention. It wouldn't be quite like that. But I do think people, like, if there was like a nuclear bomb about to happen and we had like 24
like people
hours
would talk to each other, be like, "Yo, did you see this?"
And then that would have been more convincing. Where it's like, "Hey, dude, check this out!" Like, if you see a bunch of B-roll of like people showing somebody else, but like everybody just having their phone out or wherever they are, like bus drivers and like all these different people already knowing right away. It's just but like a bunch of B-roll is like somebody walking up to the bus driver and saying, "Dude, look at,"
and I just don't think I think if we were to have some simultaneous news blast go around the world, I think there'd be a whole entire subgroup of people who just didn't give a shit, because there'd be a whole subgroup of people who don't believe it. Mm-hmm. There would be a subgroup of people who panic. There would be no like uniform reaction.
Well, and that's why the whole cliffhanger at the end rubbed me the wrong way, because they brought in a live alien to the studio, and they made me believe that they were gonna like interview it live on air. They have a guy who can translate for him, for the alien, and then they have the other main character, Emily Blunt's character, being the news anchor, who is the one who knows has this major connection with it.
Right. So they have this idea where these two abductees, I don't know the actor, the guy's name.
I don't know his name
but
either,
him and Emily Blunt, and his job is this, like, he was injected with a bunch of like math knowledge with his abduction
decade ago, almost
when they were kids.
Over a decade. Well, and it's been like 16 years since he first found out he had this ability.
And then she got abducted too. So while his thing was a bunch of math knowledge, her thing was like a bunch of like psychic abilities. And so they explained it as his job is to communicate with the aliens and her job is to communicate with humanity.
Yep.
And the only instance we ever saw him do that was understanding her clicking stuff she did that you see on the trailer.
Which you get a few words, which is "don't fear what you don't understand."
Right. And then the bit at the end. But it's not like there was a bunch of like alien clues throughout that he was deciphering. Right. So like his whole ability
seemed useless.
Underused in the movie.
Way underused. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
Which is why I think it would have been better if they, instead of making this some hybrid action movie, make it a hybrid like thriller movie.
Well, and even if they got to that climax sooner, right? Cut out a bunch of that B-roll chase stuff. Jump further ahead and get to the disclosure when there's still like 45 minutes left in the movie.
Yeah.
So that you at least get a little bit of after, and you don't end on the cliffhanger of he's decoding, or the live alien stands up, talks in his ear and clicking in this binary code.
Yeah.
He translates it to her. She walks up to the microphone on camera and says, "Listen," and then boom, done. Like, what? What?
Yeah.
Like, come on. There's so much more you could have done there.
They also did this little nod to how this might affect religious views. Mm-hmm. Specifically only focusing on the Catholic worldview, because one of the characters is a former nun, and she goes to meet one of her sisters that she was raised by and asks her what she would think.
And they call out Genesis and how, like...
Yeah, I forget the words or the specific quote they use, but she was basically asking the nun, like, doesn't the Bible say that we were God's supreme creation or whatever? Mm-hmm. And the nun says, well, it says that we were his supreme creation on earth. Which I don't even know if that's true, that's what it says or anything like that. But that I thought that point was a little bit interesting, but
I think they still didn't underuse that. Like, I think they could have gone further with that, because they brought attention to it in such a way that you thought they were going to resolve it a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah. Which led me to believe at the end that they're going to have some sort of like immediate sequel come out or something. Because there's so much that they cliffhung that they could have explained out a little bit more.
Sure.
At least to give us closure on the things that they set up.
Yeah. I mean, I was glad that it didn't just turn into some alien invasion movie.
Of course, yeah. Yeah. I like that they kept it mostly peaceful as far as like the aliens, you know, what they are here to do.
Right. But they also didn't give any, like, there are valid reasons why the people whose job it is to protect the country might perceive a threat.
Of course, yeah.
And they didn't really explore that much, except for essentially saying that the main guy who was running the company with all the knowledge,
main antagonist,
that he basically had some trauma.
Right, and he lost his way.
Right.
Like, and then there's this whole, like, the group Wardex is what they're called in the movie, which is kind of like a, you know, military private entity that is doing all of the government's underground bidding, and they have some sort of private company.
Yeah, this is another one of those areas of simplification.
Yeah.
Right? Where
it's one company.
Yeah, they're essentially using one company to stand in for the entire group of companies that work on, that are allegedly working on these things in private, right?
Yeah, doing these military contracts and then black budget,
Yeah, and they really don't show much of anything that the government is involved in, other than one scene where the guy, like, originally gets away with all the footage, and then he's, like, in a conference room with, like, the CIA and Secretary of Defense and whatnot.
And they're talking about how we need to, shut this down.
And he's like, okay, chill. I got stuff to do. And he, like, leaves them in that room.
Yeah, and he says, when I need the big guns, I'll call you or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, they're portraying the
military
power hierarchy of responsibility with the topic as that this company, while working with the military, is essentially more powerful or calls the shots with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like from what they portrayed in the movie that they have access to all of the physical material from the retrieval programs.
Right. They have the bodies, they have the craft,
the metamaterials,
the artifacts, and
they are the ones who have the actionable intelligence. Like, whereas the intelligence itself might be coming from the military, they are not the ones acting on it. They are giving it to this company,
right?
Who is not affiliated, who's not officially affiliated with the government and they can work privately.
They're not acting as the government.
Right. Yeah. I liked it as a standalone kind of thing, but I just like I'll probably watch it again.
I'll watch it again for sure.
Probably not in theater, but I'll when it comes out, I'll probably watch it a couple more times. There's probably little clues in there that we missed,
There's one part where they're doing the disclosure and they're uploading all these files from these thumb drives, and you see all these like Windows file copy interfaces, which most movies don't use real computer interfaces, so it was nice to see the actual Windows file copy. But you see file names flash across. And there's some names in there that I think are some Easter eggs to actual events. They do call out different crash events that have happened.
And they show some footage, some of which is eerily similar to some of the footage we got in this most recent Department of War releases.
Yeah.
Which is one of them being like some sort of multiple egg-shaped crafts that look like they're entering and exiting the water going the same speed,
flying in a V formation.
And they're going submerging underwater but still moving at rapid rates of speed, and then coming out of the water and moving at rapid rates of speed.
And it has the whole forward looking infrared look to it, like all this classified footage we've just been looking at.
So those are all nods to it, to some of the real disclosure stuff that's happening.
Yeah. I did find myself a little disappointed that, in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like there's real companies' names on these crates and stuff, like in the sets that are actual companies that people have thought have been involved with these matters. In this, it's just one company that's like a fictional company.
Yeah. Well, probably because, too close to home,
Yeah,
but there might be
he's
more.
done movies in the past that have been more accurate is all I'm saying. And I just didn't think it needed to be this bombastic action blockbuster. So I'm a little disappointed that's what we got rather than this more cerebral thriller
thinking. No, I agree. Which I think they could have done. And if Spielberg does do a sequel to this, I hope it is that, where maybe there's, because I don't know, I would hate to have just some like cheap, money grab sequel come out.
Yeah,
that's not directed by Spielberg. That is not, that wasn't intended to be a sequel. If he was intending a sequel to this, I would be interested to watch that and to see that and see where he goes with that.
I just didn't find it groundbreaking at all. I could see it as a useful tool to like watch with someone and then have a conversation with them
about the real world stuff going on.
About the real world stuff, right.
Like we did with our sister.
Yeah.
She didn't really understand how it connects. And she's like, well, they don't really do that. I'm like, no, that is what they do, and how they, like, it's not Wardex, but it is another company, other companies that do these things for on the government's behalf.
So it would actually be cool to like have a bunch of materials ready to go to show someone, but like get them to watch that movie to get them in that headspace before showing them that material.
Absolutely. No, that's a good point.
So it could be cool for that purpose, but
all in all, it was a fun movie to watch. I'm going to rewatch it because I think there might be some more nods and little things in there that we just didn't pick up on the first time. But, I mean, a little disappointed. But
it left me wanting, but I don't think it was a waste of time.
No. It was still a cool alien movie.
If I were to go watch it and not be into the alien topic, like me as a little kid, I still would have enjoyed it, and it would have
sparked some interest in you.
It would have put some wonder in me about these topics.
And that's, I think, the ultimate goal of these type of things, right? In my mind, like maybe not his goal, but this would be this is a good film, like Close Encounters and like a lot of these other films. They put a seed in your brain and make you think, what if? Yeah. And then you see stuff like the disclosures that are happening. Yeah. And then you're like, whoa, that's a little weird that it kind of looks a lot like what they're talking about in Hollywood. And there's always been this long running conspiracy that Hollywood gives us half truths of the reality of the world. And so what you're seeing is true. It's just fictionalized.
Right.
Enough to be discredited as not real.
Right. Well, my problem with that is like that sword cuts both ways.
Of course.
Because those movies can make it discrediting, right? Like when you bring up a topic that has been the subject of a Hollywood film and you try and have a serious conversation with someone about these matters, and you're like, what? Like the movie? Dude, you're watching too many movies. You know that stuff's not real. You're like, no, I'm talking about no, you probably watched too many movies, dude. So like, it has that effect as well, and I hope that is not what comes of the UFO topic in response to this movie.
Yeah,
I don't think so, because I think the cat's been out of the bag for too long for this movie to overtake the public narrative around UFOs and disclosure and all that. But
and I think the public is interested enough about these topics, and they just want to know what the governments of the world know about this topic. We know that there is, as generally as the public, like we're coming to the realization that there is something extraordinary going on in our skies, under our water, a phenomenon that's happening all over the world.
Right.
But there's no name or face or credible material being released about it, because there are these programs that are being verified now during this disclosure. These programs do exist, they have been putting effort into putting effort into hiding and discrediting this stuff for decades,
and debunking
and actually going out of their way. So why? Right. If there's nothing, then why? Right. Wow. All right. Well, that was a good first segment.
Totally
getting all that off our chest.
Tell us what did you guys think of the movie?
We'd love to hear about what you guys got from it. And if you always agree with us or disagree with us,
I'll never refuse an alien movie coming out. Right? I just wanted more. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a little break and we'll come back and we'll switch topics a little bit. Probably not too much of a switch up, because we're going to go into some more UFO stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll be right back.
All right, see you guys in a bit.
Yeah. Snap with me. This is for you, for us. Yeah, sometimes I write music for the fuck of it, but most times it's for the love of it. I must have been a dreamer in my last lifetime, cause every night I catch a glimpse of my future when I shut my eyes and touch the sky, but keep my feet planted on my roots, not afraid to toot my own horn. I was born for this, I was made a king, brought to earth without my wings, just words to sing with, so just listen. Glisten in the sun like her lips, with a kiss from her tongue, get a rush like a hit from the blunt to the lungs, and it burns like my grave, from the cradle to the grave. I promise I'd always stay the same, never change in my ways. I was stuck in a maze in a place called hell. I helped build myself, and the lessons I've dealt with, and I'm selfish, reckless with dough. I know at times I can't help it. I never had a lot, I never had much, but at least I got you, and at least we got love, and at least we got us. I said at least we got us. Yeah, I said I never had a lot, I never had much, but at least I got you, and at least we got love, and at least we got us. He grew up all alone, always in his own zone, living for the moment, and he knew it all along, that he didn't belong with the rest of the kids. That's why he always kept quiet and he kept in his own business. Middle of the night, my roaming like a nomad, scribbling his notepad. There's gotta be more to this life and this earth and this world, and what's worse is trying to find his purpose through a mic and a verse. Learn lessons the hard way, outcast like Andre, used to serve entrees. Now it's 5 beats a day like he's Kanye. I thought I heard him say, nothing's ever promised tomorrow today, but I'll find a way, and I'll fight it out. So he takes the pain and he writes it down, elevate right off of the ground. There's no stopping him now. He turned around, started jotting us down. He said, I never had a lot, I never had much, but at least holding back tears from the pain that he feels, but he won't let it show, cause he knows that she just wanted more and he couldn't afford her to change for the worse, and you gotta move forward. As she walks through the door and out of his life, he can't let her go. He ran outside, he said, I never had a lot, I never had much, but at least I got you, and at least we got love, and at least we have us. Yeah, I said I never had a lot, I never had much, but at least I got you, and at least we got love, and at least we have us. I never had a lot, oh, I never had a lot, oh, at least we got us, at least we got us, yeah, at least we got us.
I love that song.
Yeah. TJ's such a good singer, man.
Totally.
All right. Welcome back.
Welcome back. So I was hoping we could take a look at some of these. Well, there's one video on the second release that I wanted you to see.
Okay.
So let's check this out, and then
Cool.
we'll go from there.
So this is. Do you want me to read it about it?
Yeah, sure.
Oh wait. Never mind.
So
That's just the standard.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's just
Just
about
tell you
the
that it's
release
being
itself.
disclosed. Yeah.
But we do have, it was released on the 22nd of May. Category B-roll length, 5 minutes.
Says UAP 2021 apparent instantaneous acceleration examination. Original clip excerpt at 100% speed.
All right, check this out. So this is full speed, this first excerpt. Then it's going to like do a little wave. Boom.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it's gone. So that's cool and all. And then so it's going to do it. So it does it with this edge detection version. And then it does it 50% speed, 20% speed, 5% speed, inverted picture zoomed. And then it's got the full original clip. Okay. And the full clip's actually pretty long, but.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah.
gives you so much more context than what
Yeah.
you're looking at. Because it was zoomed in before. I'm
It
assuming.
was.
That's why it's. Wow. And they switch
Yeah.
IR.
Zooming in a bit.
Yeah. Putting in a tracker on it.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to, yeah. Ooh. That was cool. It like stopped. Or was that?
Well-
Yeah, well, you can't tell because it could just be the camera then.
It's
Like,
the camera panning.
yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of going this direction, like left,
Over a field or something, it looks like.
right. And now it's going to start turning downwards. And when we were looking, it was moving to the right.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's kind of coming at the camera now, and then it's turning back towards the right side of the screen. Yeah, you could. It seems like that thing's moving pretty quick.
Yeah.
At least steady,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Keeps having to zoom out to like actually catch up to it.
Yeah. So now it's locked in on it.
Mm-hmm. Then they zoom again. And
This
now
is
we're-
probably right before what we just saw.
Yep.
Shape is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Boom.
And then they don't catch it again, or what? It's gone?
No, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, the camera has to move pretty quick over the scenery.
Yeah, and you can tell
it's this. You could tell it's moving pretty quickly over the terrain.
And you can tell it's already struggling to follow the object just at its like cruise speed or whatever we'll call it.
Yeah.
That's for me. That is the strongest of the releases so far.
Yeah, and the way it kind of moves up and then boom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it reminds me of how Bob Lazar described how it would do that, like the physical nature of it, because like the craft would at cruise speed, average like their normal speed, it was flat like a disc. But then when it was going like gravitationally or whatever, using the gravitators that he described, it would turn on its belly, having its belly go forward.
Right.
And then it would boom.
Right.
So like that movement of like moving at this speed, maybe at a disc, and then that moving up with the belly, like would think
right.
Like,
so maybe it's transitioning like states or stages.
Yeah. So like it's turning on its engines or whatever it's using, right? And as it's doing that, it because of the way it's moving, that's the motion you see, and then boom. As soon as it gets to that, it's boom. Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like putting those two things together.
Yeah.
The way you saw that.
And I feel like with the full context and with the longer length, not just the snippet that you get in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that you're able to see the sort of landscape and the zoomed out and zoomed in versions. It gives me a higher confidence in the authenticity, and it gives me a higher confidence in the quote unquote instantaneous acceleration being, because it's not exactly instant. Instantaneous would be like one frame it's there and one frame it's gone, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that, but it does appear on the surface to be outside of the realm of normal
travel
avionics, right?
Average, travel speeds of the fastest craft we know.
Right. Like none of our craft are just like
making right turns like that too, because it was basically a right turn.
Right.
Because it started to move a different direction slowly, like you would expect. And then boom. So that's a right turn. If you're thinking about general relativity and physics way of thinking about it, right?
But just the acceleration itself, the zoom is going to have just as much, if not more, G-forces than the turns. So because of how fast that acceleration was.
So an average human probably wouldn't be able to handle that.
Or at least it would be pretty difficult. Yeah, it would be
something that you'd have to train your entire life for.
At least at the very edge of what our people can do,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it seems that I think you shared this Neil deGrasse clip.
Yeah, I did.
It seems like the nature of I had seen this too, but it seems like the nature of the conversation is starting to change in some people's estimation, and I feel
especially the type of people, right? We're talking about scientists who are starting to change their mind,
right?
Like high level thinkers in different areas,
all
changing their tune a bit on it, or at least giving it a little bit more credibility.
So. Actually, let's watch this first, but I'd like to talk a bit about how I feel things are starting to shift a bit.
Cool.
But yeah, let's check this out.
Around 1,500 aliens on the planet. Most of them right here in Manhattan. And most of them are decent enough. They're just trying to make a living.
Cab drivers.
Not as many as you'd think. Humans, for the most part, don't have a clue. They don't want one or need one either. They're happy. They think they have a good bead on things.
But why the big secret? People are smart. They can handle it.
A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that people were alone on this planet. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
Great scene there from Men in Black. Are we all alone in the universe? The Trump administration this week piqued that curiosity with its release of previously confidential Pentagon files on UFOs. And our next guest is preparing alien enthusiasts with a practical guide for dealing with potential visitors from outer space. News you can use. Joining us now, renowned astrophysicist and best-selling author Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's out today with a new book titled Take Me to Your Leader: Perspectives on Your First Alien Encounter. Neil, great to see you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for being here. I'm just going to read your own words on the back of the book so readers know what to expect when they pick this up. Think of Take Me to Your Leader as a book of etiquette for close encounters, or perhaps a scientifically infused user's manual with helpful hints from an astrophysicist who wants to meet the aliens as badly as you do.
That's me, right there.
So tell me, do you write this book because you think that encounter is imminent?
Well, it's been gurgling up within me, and because alien sightings or UFO sightings have transitioned really over the past several years from the farmer seeing it on his back 40 and drunken revelers at 2 a.m. when the bar closes. You get these reports and you say, I don't know how we should believe those. Right on up to, in recent years, testimonies in Congress by insiders and former military officials and security, people in the security sectors of our government, reporting on things that we either don't understand or that they believe they do, such as alien body parts, crashed saucers, reversed engineering of their technologies. So I'm thinking, okay, it's time to bring out the alien. So why not? And so
I just want to. He was so on the other side of this for so long.
Yeah. Well, even when the disclosure, like prominent people were coming out, he was finding ways to discredit them in his own way of doing it.
Yeah, I think his line of argument went something like,
"Where's the evidence?"
This is nice that you're telling us this, but where's the actual data? Yeah.
That's
which I get, like as a scientist.
That's how you probably should react to it. But yeah, but that's what I mean by that's how he was reacting, even as recently as like David Fravor's stuff coming out. Like, so it's been a few years now since then. So
yeah, this feels weird to me because I don't think that anything has fundamentally shifted yet. Maybe we're too into this and it's like...
Maybe.
But we still just have grainy videos. We had the Tic Tac stuff back in 2017.
Yeah, I'm curious to think... or to know if maybe there's other things being leaked that are only understood by certain like high level, like, scientists or like. Yeah,
like, are you saying all in the documents rather than the videos?
Maybe both.
On this, like, or are you saying other stuff?
Other stuff that's like gonna become public.
Yeah.
But hasn't yet. And maybe there are certain factions or certain types of people like within academia that are being given the keys to it before it gets out,
I mean, I should give him a little bit of a break because I'm like, I would rather have him a bit like on this side. I say that, but then here's this phenomena that can happen, right? Like things are slowly over time shifting in the discussion, right? Mm-hmm. And certain voices have been raising to the forefront as far as their honesty, their trustworthiness, the type of interviews and questions they ask, and how open they are. So you get people rising like Jesse Michaels,
I was gonna say that too,
David Grush, like, not that he's like rising star status, but his
ability to communicate, their ability to communicate to people about it and what questions to ask.
Yeah, certain people's like reputation for being a person who you want to pay attention to on this topic are rising, right?
Yes.
And I feel like it's a bit of a strategic move to try to control voices that are in that position. And so I feel like there are some people who are going to shift
back to not disclosing, you mean?
No. I just feel like there's people who are now shifting into this stuff is real camp in order to position themselves to among be a part of the voices that can be influential in the conversation.
I hear what you're saying, yeah.
And if you're the type of person who's been, I don't know.
But that could go both ways.
Some of the types of arguments and dismissals that people have had in their track record before this point, to me, makes them a little less willing to want to trust the things they have to say now that they quote unquote are on this side of the conversation. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I don't even know if he believes this stuff or if he's just saying, okay, well, things are getting to a point where
can't deny it outright now.
This book will sell.
True.
Or if it's
like a grift, or if it's
or if it's something darker than that. And I'm not like trying to accuse Neil deGrasse Tyson specifically, but I would not be surprised if someone in the public discourse is doing this function, which is on behalf of the people who represent like the legacy program who are antagonistic to disclosure, wanting to get voices in the fore so that they can steer the conversation in a safer direction. Yeah. Right.
Well, and to that point, it's a good time to bring up that the White House is starting a commission on UAP disclosure, and Avi Loeb is going to run it for the White House, and they're going to have their own commission and their own group that he's the head of, that Avi Loeb is the head of now, and he's going to be supposedly bringing in people from the military and Aero and all these other groups, and kind of like getting, like, I don't know, it's a place of gathering of the information or something. Which is interesting because I think it goes along the same line. Like, if they get their hands on somebody who is trusted within the UFO disclosure movement as being very open-minded, and then they're able to steer.
I don't know the disclosure. Make of Avi Loeb, honestly, he's super interesting. He seems pretty open-minded. I like this idea of putting up sensors in a way that you can just track this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, you build a decentralized sensor network so that you can just scan the sky and know for sure what's flying around.
Yeah, maybe piggyback off of what Elon Musk is doing with all his satellites.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is it has such direct national security implications to be able to systematically track large chunks of the sky. Like, you now have access to intelligence that certain agencies don't want you having access to, right? They don't want you
wouldn't want that decentralized.
Knowing the movements of their aircraft, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't want that.
There's no way you're setting up a system like that without them being involved and setting some ground rules for you, right? Mm-hmm. At least that's what I think. I don't know if that's
I imagine that would be their opinion, yeah.
anyway, so it's a cool idea. I don't know, because of what the idea is, like what relationship that puts him in with respect to these
to the legacy and program,
the defense industry and whatnot, right? So but
it's interesting.
I like,
we'll see what comes
I like
of it
the
now.
types of arguments he has about like the likelihood of non-human intelligence and whatnot. Anyway, I want to see the rest of what he's saying here.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep going on this.
So if they bring out the alien, or if an alien does arrive, we should be prepared for that. And this is a primer for you.
You're right. It's not just sightings on dashboard cameras in Russia anymore. It seems to have a little more credibility. Even former President Obama recently said something that suggests.
Oh, man, this was the other point I wanted to bring up originally from this, was that let's say we get to a point where we know for sure, like it's 100% now that this is real. Just post whatever disclosure type thing or whatever. Don't all the people who've been like shouting down experiencers, people who've seen objects, people who have actually been had abductions, all of that, and saying, oh, it's some farmer, or oh, you can't trust it because of it. Like, do we get to go back in time and like give people like negative marks, for that type of behavior? Like, is that
for intentionally? Like,
is that retroactively logical behavior, or is that retroactive? Like, now is this Monday morning quarterbacking saying you should have known?
Right.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think if their intentions were honest and they were doing what they thought was the right thing, and they're willing to, eat it and say, hey, put their hand up and say, I got it wrong and I apologize, but, I'd still like to be a part of the conversation because I think I have value, and they're just honest about it, then sure, I think you can give them a pass. But I do think for certain people, it'll be obvious.
Yeah.
That that was their intention to
still seem like this conversation we're watching still seems to have this belittling tone to a farmer witnessing something.
Of course.
Like, what is so incredible about what lacks credibility about a farmer seeing something? Like, this is a person who's on his property all the time. They know all the wildlife in the area. They know the patterns of the land.
They see things in the skies all the time. They know the helicopters that pass by. They know the airplanes that pass by.
Like, they're idiots because they're farmers?
And what about all the ones of antiquity? All of the sightings of antiquity before any cameras, before any, before aircraft, right?
I guess, I'm just hearing this sort of attitude.
True.
And that still turns me off, and not like.
It's because in my mind, I think he, like most scientists, are egotistical, and he wants to give himself an out.
Yeah.
So if you have that tone about it, you give yourself an out when things don't pan out to be anything, right?
Like, I'll grant him that, like, if you're just doing a statistical analysis and you get a report from a trained pilot versus a report from a farmer, chances are you might have higher accuracy of reporting from this trained observer.
Well, and you have the systems that they're using to even see it in the first place, right?
Right.
Like, you have those systems as evidence.
Right.
Right? Those are some sort of data points that, whereas the farmer's account is more like you just have to trust it, right? And that's the only thing I can think. Like, I because I believe that if you're experiencing something, whoever you are, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in a highly advanced jet using highly advanced equipment, and you're the one that's saying you're seeing something that's over the water you've never seen before, because just like the farmer, the pilot knows what he's looking at out there. He knows what to expect.
Right.
The farmer knows what to expect just like he does. They have the same sort of ability to contextualize it against their background.
Right. They'll have different context to fit things too.
It's just one has more tools to give credence, and they have a video of what they're saying and describing, right? So that would be the only thing. I mean, it gets a little bit more blurry when you're talking about like a politician who says something and a civilian.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're the same thing. The politician isn't using anything else other than his eyes either, right?
All right, let's keep going.
All right.
Suggested that he knew that we were not alone in the universe. He had to kind of walk it back.
So he's scientifically literate. So when he says, yeah, surely they're aliens, he's saying what we had told him in the astrophysics community. You do the math, you look at how old the universe is, the ingredients of life, how quickly life got started on Earth. It'd be irresponsible. It would be an overstretch of your ego to presume we're alone.
So let me ask you, what did you think of the material that the Pentagon just did release?
Oh, so I enjoyed going back to those early typewritten letters from 1947, describing in very flat terms, not, no hyperbole. We found this. What do you think of that? Let's talk about this. Let's keep it under wraps. And it's just fun to get a little bit of history there. But again, it was consistent with
that looked like a helicopter.
I was just going to say the same thing.
New there, that no shockers that we couldn't have extrapolated from what was already told.
So Neil, your book includes tips and tricks for if the reader ever finds themselves in an alien encounter, and you write in part this: if an alien approaches you with multiple appendages, one of which looks like an extend hand, resist grabbing and shaking it. You don't know in advance what part of the alien's anatomy you just touched, and you probably don't want to find out. Furthermore, the handshake is not even a worldwide custom, so it's surely not universal. Nor do you know if raising your hand in a high gesture can be constructed as an act of kindness or aggression. And what if the alien chooses to greet you the way Earth dogs greet each other, and it simply wants to come around and sniff your butt? You don't know anything about your new friend's customs, so on a first encounter, it's probably a good idea to leave all your habits at home until you learn a thing or two about theirs. We laughed along with that.
Want to read the audiobook?
Yeah, I was going to say, really good. So, what do you do?
Well, so I have a whole chapter on how you might take first steps. Okay. By the way, Obama recently said that he wanted to be the emissary of Earth to aliens.
He's a good choice.
Well, because he's a diplomat and he's a politician, and I think if the aliens want to lay waste to Earth, you need a diplomat in there to try to not have that happen. But if they don't, because the evil alien trope, I think, is primarily our fears of ourselves hoisted upon them, because we know how we treat one another when it's a more advanced part of our civilization encountering a less advanced. They're enslaved, they're slaughtered, they're persecuted. List whatever the history of civilization has done, what we have done to ourselves. So if the alien is not evil, then we don't really need a politician, you need a scientist. And so I describe a kit you should carry with you, a little science kit, like the Pythagorean theorem. That would be literally universal, and you show geometrically with a triangle and square. The periodic table of elements, they won't recognize our symbols, but the structure of the periodic table comes from quantum physics. That is universal. So you have some certain things that'll warm them up and give them some confidence that we have any intelligence at all.
So I agree with some of this, but
I was gonna say, I mean, it's not a bad idea if you're somebody who wants to have an encounter, and if encounters are just happening all the time and you end up winning one. I mean, it's not a bad idea to have those things handy.
Yeah,
be able to communicate in some sort of universal way.
Right.
But the tone of it all,
the tone of the quote that he pulled, and I want to try and be fair to Neil deGrasse Tyson here. This is clearly a comedic intro to a chapter.
Yeah.
On the topic of customs and whatnot, and how you might go about communicating
without knowing the rest of the content.
Yeah. So I don't want to judge it all just based on the jokey tone of that, but it's a little
too on the nose.
It's a little silly.
It's a little too on the nose as far as being like very what's the word I'm looking for? Making a mockery of the idea of it, you know?
There's the
obviously, like, if you're being abducted, you don't have enough time to think about what can I grab my Rubik's Cube?
Let me go grab my protractor.
Yeah. Like,
I think what I'm hearing from this conversation feels to me like conversations we would have about this topic like 20 years ago.
Right.
It feels like a person who's just getting into the topic and starting to grapple with some of the thoughts and whatnot.
But
who still hasn't taken like done a serious study on the body of UFO literature and of people's experiences and what people have reported from encounters and whatnot. To where, you know, like the comment about like if there's a appendage sticking out, like in UFO lore, like there are pretty clearly defined multiple like races, species that seem to be interacting with us, and they all are relatively humanoid, and so that probably is a hand if it's a humanoid,
right?
But he's not accepting that assumption because it's well, and again, I haven't read this whole book yet, so I don't know where he actually is on this, but just based off this snippet, it seems like he's ready to have conversations about this, but he still hasn't done his homework yet. That's kind of what I'm gathering.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to read this to find
out. I want to read it too.
To find out where he actually goes with it, and maybe there is a more serious tone underneath a lot of the jokes.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope there's actually something, because he is a smart dude, obviously. And so I want more people like him involved in...
Yeah. Well, he's a science communicator, and he does a good job with people who are not scientifically minded, explaining how things work. And like we talked about with, you know, Disclosure Day, it would provide a stepping stool for people who are wanting to get into the topic, or a thing to like recommend somebody who's just like, hey man, like I'm like really interested in like what's going on with the disclosure stuff and all the Congress and like what should I?
But also from his position and his credentials to come into the topic without having done his homework, he can also set it back in certain ways by making assertions that certain things that have absolutely been observed make no sense to be true because
True.
He doesn't think it makes sense, right? And he hasn't seen the evidence for that yet. But
he hasn't.
But if he hasn't seen the evidence because he just came around to taking it seriously and hasn't done his homework, then you know. Anyway,
no, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know what his intentions are. Like, if he intends to be genuine, however that looks, right? Or if he intends to be, you know, I don't want to fully like bag on him, but like be a grifter, come out with a book that you know is going to sell because it's a hot topic. You are changing your mind a little bit about how serious you want to take it, but instead of taking it seriously and diving in and interviewing people and finding out all the information like you're suggesting he should do before diving into this.
Yeah.
Like that would be like do some interviews like on your, because he has a podcast, like he can just bring people on and be like, hey, like I'm into it now, like tell me your story and like I want to know.
But there's a lot of books and there's a lot of data and there's a lot of history, and this phenomena clearly goes quite a ways back. And so, you know, having conversations about determining their intentions, there's certain information we have to make analysis with, like just the sheer length of how long this has been going on and their relative technology level to us, which can easily lead you to the idea that maybe, like, if they had actually wanted to take us over violently with that technological difference and how long they've been around, I'm sure they could have been done with it if they wanted to do us harm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's in my mind, it's fairly safe to assume that they're not trying to wipe us out.
That it's not some like conquest.
Yeah.
Like they still may not be our friends.
Right. They're not.
There's
more
a
like,
whole vast
they're more neutral to the idea of
like
us
possibility
being around.
Space of what could be happening. We just know that it's it's not very likely that they're here to conquer Earth and take it over for its resources.
Nor is it all that likely that they're here to save us.
Right.
From ourselves. Like they could just be like here and it's just part of the fact and we are unaware of it because our governments think that that's the best for us. They couldn't care less whether we know or didn't know.
Yeah.
And when we do find out, or if we were to wipe ourselves out, they're just like, okay, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's just as likely as either of the other scenarios.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of this. Let's finish it out, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
More of the universal language than anything we could speak.
Exactly, and so you got to come equipped to communicate in that way.
And I guess there is this belief, as a final last quick question, you know, if an alien civilization reaches us, that means they have reached a degree of sophistication that we have not. Is there then hope that perhaps that means they would also be enlightened and want to be friends?
I think that's a realistic hope. Like I said, evil aliens is just us. Okay, and one concern I have is that every Hollywood rendering of aliens, most of them, are humanoid. And, you know, they're gray, big eyes, you know.
This guy over here.
Well, I love him hanging out the window, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting, they never give him hair. I'm just intrigued by that, because if they're humanoid, they might have hair, a mustache or a beard, evil goatee beard.
Maybe. All right,
See, this is the thing, like, where does he think that comes from? Like, he clearly thinks someone just, like, made that up.
Well, I think the same way we put the idea that they may be evil and here to do us harm.
Yeah.
They do the same thing with its characteristics.
Yeah.
You know, that's, I think, maybe what he's assuming.
Yeah. It literally comes from Whitley Strieber. And from all sorts of experiencers since. Like, he was the one that had that art done that showed the first, like, classic gray. And to other experiencers who saw it, it, like, made them, like freeze when they saw it. Yeah.
Because they had already seen that.
They're like, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, it is a meme now. I get that, but it isn't just a meme that popped up out of nowhere.
Right.
And it's not a meme that was created by Hollywood. It was perpetrated, or it was like
perpetuated,
publicized and perpetuated by Hollywood, but it wasn't made by Hollywood.
Right. Yeah, it was the trope of the alien. But now, like, there's all these people, you know, all these accounts of other civilizations or beings, at least races,
right?
Like whether the races are like they're different races as far as like physically, but what if they're part of species? Sorry, okay. Yeah, they're different species as far as physically, but maybe they're part of some sort of like sci-fi galactic federation where they're all just one.
Where there are multiple species involved in a single civilization.
Yeah,
you're right.
Right, which could be just as possible.
Totally.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting that I think that's kind of his way of dealing with most things, though. He kind of adds humor to the science.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's part of what makes him a science communicator.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be able to have fun with the stuff.
Yeah. And it's also a lighthearted way of bringing attention to certain topics. So.
Yeah. But at the same time, this is where I'm like worried that someone like him coming in and like
not doing the research,
being perceived by others who are also new to the topic as some sort of authority or knowledgeable on what's going on here when he isn't really. So
good point. Yeah,
I hope he becomes so, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's writing a book, this kind of seems like a meme book, like where he's just trying to like. But I do think he's really interested in, like, is more interested in it than he's ever been, as far as being real. But
yeah,
like,
this is a totally different tone than he's had on it.
And I hope that if this isn't, because we don't know the content yet, right? Like, we don't know how far he goes into it.
Yeah.
But if this isn't it, the hope is that there's more to come from him that would be more serious on the topic. Like, maybe this is just the Volume 1 beginner's guide, and then there's more to come.
Yeah, I mean, once you publish a book on a topic, hopefully there's going to be a bunch of follow-up conversations, and that's going to inform his worldview.
People reaching out to him.
Moving forward from there, right?
Do interviews, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. He's putting his foot in the ring as I'm interested.
Yes.
While also
which is inviting a bunch of, communications with people who do know stuff to hopefully come along and educate him a little more.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else we want to get in this episode?
There was.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about this.
Okay.
Which I haven't.
This is the Australian document leak.
So there was a press conference on Capitol Hill. With like the whole like UFO congressional crowd, with also Leslie Kean and David Grush and some other people. You can see the whole press conference online. It's pretty quick. But Anna Paulina Luna, what's his name? Tim Burchett and Burleson and a bunch of these characters are all there. But during David Grush's, after everyone gave their little spiels, they did a bit of question and answer with the press, and someone asked David Grush about like what's the best evidence accessible to the public.
Yeah.
And so let's check this out, what he says.
There is a declassified 1971 Australian formerly classified secret assessment that a couple years ago was put in the Australian National Archives. I encourage people to read page 7 through 16, and that was the nuclear branch chief of the Australian government discussing the U.S. cover-up and the involvement of the CIA back in the 70s. And that's actually a little-known document that is publicly available.
So I was able to download the document. Maybe we make this our next episode, like actually going over it. I know we want to get to the Book of Enoch too, but
well, we got some stuff to do. This is all pretty new.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So anyway, there's the whole document here.
Oh, nice. And this is from 1970.
National Archives of Australia. Yeah. So yeah, it'd be fun to go through this and actually read what he's talking about.
U.S. official attitude to UFOs.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So there was one thing I wanted to finish out our episode with.
Yeah.
And it's a poem.
Oh, right.
And it's called Instructions Before Visiting Earth, a poem by James McCrae. Read by David J. I.
David G?
David G, maybe?
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is we'll just finish out here and then we'll do our outro after this. This is good.
Cool. I want to check it out. Let's go.
Here's such a powerful poem by James McCrae. He said this piece was inspired by the thought of a soul being given instructions before incarnating on Earth. A reminder of our higher purpose in this crazy world. It's called Instructions Before Visiting Earth. In the event that you wake up and find your soul separated from Source and manifest into material form, don't panic. Your condition is only temporary. You have been selected for the opportunity of human incarnation. This 3D simulation is designed to break up the monotony of eternity by giving you a fully immersive experience as a distinct ego identity. Your body will serve as your physical avatar as you navigate a dense and dramatic reality. There will be many distractions, causing you to forget your true nature and origin. You will experience a range of emotions, from joy to loneliness to despair. But remember, no matter what trials and traumas you encounter, your soul remains perfectly safe. At times you may feel lost or afraid. This is totally normal. If you ever need guidance, simply slow down your busy mind and bring your awareness to the quiet place inside yourself. On this planet, nothing is permanent. People and things will come and go. You will fall in love and form sentimental attachments, only to lose everything you hold dear. So cling to nothing too tightly, even yourself. And when it's time to let go with grace. For nothing is owned, only borrowed. As you walk among the people on the planet, try to be a good guest. Tread lightly. Remember that you are only visiting. Don't make a mess. Listen more than you speak. Give more than you take. Don't keep your soft heart locked inside a glass cage, protected from wear and tear. You'll never make it out alive, and time passes quickly. So come back with some battle scars and good stories to tell.
That was really beautiful. I like that.
Yeah. I listen to that once a day now. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good way to either end your day or start your day or something.
Just to like keep you centered. And
just remind you
to not take things too seriously.
Yeah, don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all hanging
make
out.
Some jokes about some aliens. Sorry, Neil.
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate y'all hanging out today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys want to follow along, you guys can go to our website. It's dualitycheck.net. We got everything there, all the episodes. You can click on them and go to YouTube if you want to follow along with our video. See us here in studio with our beautiful Duality Check blanket in the background and all of our knickknacks, and see our faces. And if you guys go to YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. That kind of stuff really helps out. We're also on Rumble. If YouTube is not your thing, we're on Rumble. You can follow us on any podcast platform, Apple Music, Spotify, anything like that, anything you prefer. You guys can like, comment, and rate us on those platforms as well. All those things help get the word out about us. And
leave us a comment on YouTube about what you thought about Disclosure Day.
Yeah, I want to hear that. See what you guys thought about it.
Yeah, I want to know if we're the only ones that were a little let down. I mean, it seems that we're not, but I don't know.
I think that could also be just because we had so much hope for it. But I appreciate y'all hanging out. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Yep,
Later.
We'll see you guys next time.